I have a blockage or something stops my vibration when I get confused about.
So confusion and blockage are the same thing. I have split energy about, because I think this and that about it.
Yes. I am a rebel and a radical about moving forward.
We all are. Rebel means you're rebellious and pushing against things, and nothing will slow down your motion forward than pushing against what you're leaving.
So, but I get confused about if I'm putting positive things into my vortex. I get confused about how is putting positive things into my vortex. I feel like when I go to the rebel language or the radical language, that those are in conflict.
Well, the words don't matter so much, but how you feel when you offer them does matter. So if they're in conflict, then you need to choose some different language. You want to give us an example?
Well, we were talking about like war versus peace, or if you're being a radical towards a movement that is out there, something that you believe in and you want to fight.
These labels are a little confusing to begin with. Can you briefly define what you mean when you use the word radical?
Okay, maybe rebel's the better word.
Can you briefly define what you mean when you use the word radical?
Rebel.
Because rebel is rebellious, and rebellious is pushing against. And pushing against what you don't want won't get you to what you do want.
Right.
Yeah, there's a conflict, yeah.
Yeah, that's my conflict. So how do I, if I want to fight for a cause?
You don't have to fight for anything. Your fighting slows you down. But there's a big population of the world that believes in fighting, and so it's easy for you to pick it up. But when you're pushing against something, you are not moving toward what you want. You've just got to pick the direction you want to go and be more steady about going in that direction. What humans do is that life shows you what you don't want, which helps you to know what you do want. And instead of just turning toward what you do want and talking about why you want it and looking for the positive aspects of being there, because they don't believe they can have it, and then they justify wanting that by expressing how bad the other is. That's what rebelliousness is. It's pushing against making a strong statement of all the things you don't want. But in a law of attraction-based universe, you're just clogging up your point of attraction. In a law of attraction-based universe, there's no exclusion. There is no rebellion. There is no pushing against. There is only attraction. So when you see something that you want and say yes to it, you include it in your vibration. When you see something you don't want and shout no at it, you include it in your vibration. And all the stuff you're shouting no at is keeping you from the yes side of it.
Which is why I feel that conflict.
Yeah, there is a conflict, and you feel it in the form of emotion that feels like disappointment or disapproval or powerlessness or.
You're right. So just what do I want and work towards it, not fight against.
Well, we've been talking about these things for a long time, and it's a way of going about it. When you know what you don't want, you know what you do want, and you do have the ability to start a day out by thinking about the I want side of an equation and practicing it until it gets a foothold, until it becomes a habit of thought. A belief is just a thought you continue to think. If you desire something and believe it, there's no split energy, so it happens quickly. If you desire something and you doubt it, there's split energy, and so it doesn't happen quickly or maybe ever. And so the key is to get your energy going toward what you want. And so there are all kinds of processes that we've offered, pivoting when you know what you don't want, talk about what you do want instead, and so forth. But there is a faster way. And the faster way includes understanding how the whole thing works. And this is how the whole thing works. What you offer vibrationally is what is available to you. It's what impulses come to you. It's what your path is about. And so if you could just know that there's all this, we don't really like the word support. It's the word Esther finds. There's all this awareness of what you want, an awareness of where you are in relationship to it, and guidance about the path of least resistance to help you to be there. That's available to you all the time. But you've got to tune to the frequency so that you can hear it. So that means if you, for example, quiet your mind through meditation And it takes a little while to develop the art of that. But when you quiet your mind, then your vibration rises. And when your vibration rises, now you're privy to what your inner being knows about everything. So impulses and guidance come into your mind from that point of view that knows where you are and where you want to be. But if you're getting guidance from someplace other than that, it's probably leading you into more rebelliousness, into more radicalism. It's probably leading you to more pushing against what you don't want. So when you understand that the process works this way, you've been living and asking, and there is a vibrational reality that is calling you. And your inner being is right there calling you to everything that you want. So when you're not doing that thing you do that keeps you from hearing it, you hear it. Well, what are some of the things you do that keep you from hearing it? Complaining, noticing what is, taking score of what is, trying to follow other people who don't know where they're going either. There are so many things that you do on a daily basis that muddy up your waters, where if you would meditate, you would have a much greater opportunity to feel your guidance and know when you're moving in the direction of something that you want. And then the next thing that we would do if we were standing in your physical shoes, we would deliberately, many times a day, stop and acknowledge that this is a new segment where new things are going to happen, and we would calibrate ourselves to what we know is in the vortex about that. We would calibrate to thoughts that feel good about those things. The word calibration isn't hard, is it? Have you ever tuned a guitar? That's all it is, calibrating to the note. When the whole orchestra calibrates to the note, then the orchestra sounds good. If the orchestra is calibrating to some random things, and there are 15 different things that they're calibrating to, when they come together, even though they're playing what's on their sheet music, it doesn't sound good because they didn't calibrate to the same frequency. So, calibration, it's something that you really want to do. You want to calibrate to your highest good. You want to calibrate to who you really are. How do you know what that is? How do you know what to listen to? You ask people for opinions, and if you ask 10 people, they've got 10 variations on the idea. How do you come to know? Well, you've tuned yourself, and you know what the feeling of happy feels like, and you've tuned yourself, and you know what the feeling of clarity feels like, and so then you just tune on purpose, and then you just pay attention to the impulses that you get. And after a little while, you begin to notice that I was feeling this way, and this unfolded. And I was feeling this way, and this unfolded. And after a little while, you have developed a relationship with your inner being, with your own guidance system, that you can trust. It will never let you down, because your inner being knows each and every thing that you have come to awareness of preferring through all of the life experience that you've lived. The life experience you lived before you got here and what you've been living since you got here. This vibrational reality, it's the vibrational version of you. And it is only the things that you've asked for that you want. And it's only what source is calibrated to.
Perfect. I've listened to you say this before, but listened. And having you have this discussion with me now, I feel like my inner being is clicked.
Well, most people, when they're thinking about being deliberate creators, they're thinking about thoughts. They're thinking about thoughts and words and actions. Well, we understand that because every emotion you feel is about the mixture of thoughts. Here's the best way of explaining it to you. Your inner being has been around you always, and your inner being knows who you are and what you want and is keenly calibrated to that. And the words that it would take to describe any one of your vortices and the precision with which you have built it over your life experiences would take longer than this lifetime would afford you if you were to hear it in words. In other words, there's so much culmination of so much becoming that you have been living. But your inner being is tuned to it and aware of you. So now, here you are out in the world. Maybe in that bubble that we described, maybe you just went off half-cocked, got out of bed, you're mad at everybody, and off you went. But anyway, you're out in the world. So your inner being is aware of where you are. And every encounter you have, so you meet someone, and you have a reaction to them, because there's a mixture of what they've got going on vibrationally and what you've got going on vibrationally. So you have an experience. You might even say you're having an opinion of this exchange that you're having. In the same moment, your inner being is having an opinion. But your inner being's opinion is based upon a whole range of criteria that yours might not be, like the bigness of your life, the bigness of who you are, and all of the components of things that matter to you. Not just prosperity and not just personal well-being, but upliftment, and on and on and on and on and on and on and on. So your inner being has an opinion about what's going on. So in a very rudimentary way, let's say, for example, this person is not tuned in, and the reason that you're rendezvousing with them is because you're not either. It's always that way. And you have a reaction to their whatever, to their rudeness or to their whatever. Well, the reason that that feels like it feels to you is because your inner being simply loved them and understood them and called them to their highest good. And the fact that you didn't leaves you feeling the absence of harmony or the offness of the calibration. In other words, you calibrated with the physical world. You didn't calibrate with your spiritual world. You didn't calibrate with your source. You can't be angry and be calibrated with your source. Well, the nice thing is, the more you meditate and the more you deliberately calibrate, the more you'll catch it in the early subtle stages. So when you're off a little, you can adjust it before law of attraction gets hold of it and momentum gets underway and it gets out of hand. That's why beliefs get out of hand, is because you calibrate and then you attract and then you say, see, it is true. And then you join groups and you talk about what happens and you calibrate more until you have this argument around the world about what truths are. And we say, you can make anything true that you focus upon because the law of attraction will bring you the data about what you're offering as a vibration. So do you want to make hate true or do you want to make love true? Do you want to make your balance true or do you want to make your imbalance true? Do you want to make your love true or your hate true, your abundance true or your lack of abundance true? You get to choose what it is. Your inner being already knows what you want and is always true to what you want. Other people in the world, that's not their job. It's not their job to be the calibration that calibrates you to what you want. Now, there are a lot of people that do. Lots of ministers and mothers and teachers and friends really care about you. And they do their best to calibrate on your behalf. And when you hold one of them as your object of attention, it feels really good. But it makes you dependent upon things that are unreliable because they are few and far between. Those who will hold steady to who they know you really are when you're behaving in a way that is not who you really are. But your inner being always is there for you. Always is calibratable. Always it is possible to calibrate to your inner being. Well, we're using that word a lot. What do we mean by that? Resonate with it. What else do we mean? Sync. What else do we mean? Feel the emotion of it. Anytime you feel negative emotion, you're not calibrated to your inner being or to what you want. Anytime you feel negative emotion, that's just the way it is. You're calibrated to something else. You're calibrated to your rebelliousness. You're calibrated to what's wrong in the world. You're calibrated to what's wrong in this moment. And most of all, you're calibrated away from who you really are. So you're not replenishing, you're deplenishing. You're not in sync with who you are. You're not in the receiving mode, so good ideas can't flow. You're in the leave your wallet on the counter and drop your credit card between the slot and the floor and trip over your own shoelace and break your own teeth out mode. That's the mode that you're in. You get to choose. It gets better and better and better and better and better, or worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And you get to decide where along the way you're going to tune in. You get to decide how far out of balance you're willing to be. Well, a lot of you are willing to get pretty far out of balance because you have found that others feel sorry for you, or that others will support you, or that others will see you as vulnerable. If you get in a bad enough spot, if you dig a big enough hole and crawl out, they'll make a monument for you. There's a lot of rewards from the physical world as you suffer your way into the game that they've been by default playing. Or you can decide, I'm an extension of source energy, and source is aware of me. And source is rooting for me and calling me back into alignment with not just who they are, with that which I really am, and with all things that I desire.